Okay, so I'm going to continue this, and Hythloday is being thoroughly annoying. And what I'm going to be waiting for is if to see if you ever answer the fact that I'm saying these are A. Your theory of reality is B. A implies B. That's what I'm saying. That's not circular.
Hodgepodge, and with no, and they've granted you a philosophy degree because of its hodgepodge nature. Yeah? And that certainly you have not done. I mean, a degree in the UK is a 3-year course. I don't know how yours is 4. Yeah, proceeded. We finished school at 16. We did finish in my era at 16. 2 years of intermediate college, 17, 18 is the normal way, and then graduating at 21 is the normal path. Right? You guys, I understand you leave at 18. Are you telling me you graduate at 22? Right? So,
Yeah, college is a 4-year thing. Sometimes you can do it longer if you want 5 years. I, for example, had to leave and work for about a year, and I went to some what we called junior colleges during that time. Um, and then I went back and finished. Some people just finish in 5 years because they just don't want to do what used to be considered a full schedule of credits. The real limit is the credits. You have to accomplish a certain number of credits, and they have to be certain categories or specific classes.
and I'm very interested to know what fucking modules you have done and whether you have a transcript of studies. Yeah, because I have it. Yeah, I was digging it out, all my academic records. See, for for proving myself in job interviews, it's like 10% chance of them actually asking to see your qualifications. But in the education industry, you do actually. You can't get to become a teacher without showing it. Yeah. So when I worked in schools, I did actually. Whereas I never in engineering. Nobody asks me for my qualifications in engineering. Just never come up. They just listen to you. If you could talk the bullshit or whatever, you know. I never got asked to see my qualifications in all my engineering jobs.
Really, not even your resume of previous engineering jobs? That's hard to believe. You must just not be mentioning that part.
Um,
Because I work as an engineer. So the reason that was possible is because I started getting paid for programming at 13, so I had a resume, got a job during college, continued to build the resume, and that's what they look at instead of the degree.
But yeah, something doesn't add up here. The fact that you're always, Emendum has pointed to it when he says, look at you, always forgetting to switch your audio on and stuff. It's it doesn't you don't strike as a technical.
Right, because of the audio thing, obviously the logic of my argument is suspect, when in reality the logic of the argument can be judged on its own properties. Hmm.
Person. I liked you because you were peaceable at times. It's a nice word, peaceable. Um, to an extent that extends to friendliness. Yeah. Um, but it's I can't proceed to think of you as a friend as I did because of those, because of we've hit the renew troubles, and it reminds me again of the reasons we fell out, and we're both peaceable in which we're inclined to.
Well, that's unfortunate. That's that's a bit sad. But um okay.
Try to work under the friendly banner, and if you do that long enough, then you become de facto friends of sorts. And well, like I say,
No, we've had conversations between the two of us, and I felt we shared information that was beyond these debates. And I don't just become a default friend because I'm friendly to someone. Speak for yourself.
like I said, to trick. Um, from the Tom Cruise movie Cocktail, when she says, "I didn't want it to end badly," and he says, "Everything ends badly, otherwise it wouldn't end." That was a pretty cool quote, I thought, and truth, perhaps.
Right, but it's a goal of life to learn how to end things well because that's also possible.
Right, so remember, left-hand side is what I'm saying. Um, yeah, sole singular point that I'm making. But
So my left-hand side is the data we get from the first person perspective. I'm not sure you understand that.
Pyro, um, as introduced
It's Pyrrho, okay? It's a historical figure. It's pronounced Pyrrho.
this idea, which I'll deal with because I can demonstrate the illogic of it when I'm saying that he's not spoke logically. I mean, his claim to be talking logic at early in the second video is, look, clearly I'm saying A, if A, then B, yeah, my logic. Later on, he says his logic is based upon axiom 1, axiom 2, and a conclusion. Now here, this is a statement, is one way of describing it.
Axiom 1 is not exactly an axiom by classical logic because classical logic has a problem with empirical data. It's considered secondary. Synthetic truths are considered secondary. So I have been calling them the input because they act like axioms. They're the truths, they're the A part. If A, then B. If I see things falling, then something must make them fall. I see things falling comes from the film strip.
Um, but that would be a logical statement, or it's also can be equally described as a proposition. Right? Now this is
Well, in your classical logic, it could be described as a proposition. Generally, we describe it as a fact, and if it's false, then it never was a fact. So we talk about it being a fact because of the evidence for it. And I say that the evidence is the fact, and that is the premise of the conditional that leads to believing in a theory of physics, of gears.
an argument or a premise that proposition or premise that he stands behind, yeah, as the logic. Later on, he says the logic is an argument structured like this. Contradiction. Yeah, it's one or the other that we're arguing about at this time. Right? His
There is no contradiction. I don't even. What?
in what you call the principle of
Those are just two different forms of describing an argument, right? A A implies B. A can be a set of things. A set more than one fact can be an A. A could be a compound statement of a million other A sub 1 through N.
charity, that is dealing with the better of the stronger form of his argument, I'll deal over here because he doesn't really put ever any meat on these bones of these A's, which really, if he's calling an argument, should be premises. And
Um, I I said the A's are frames from the film strip, which is a metaphor, but I don't see how it lacks technicality. It means every fact you've noted can be isn't necessarily included as your premises that lead you to your conclusion through many steps, possibly in reality, to B. Once you've done those steps, you can just say A, which is a compound set of facts, implies B.
that the premises involve logical entailment. And he never, and the names of the entailment that they have names, right? And logical, the inferences have names, and he never details those names, except perhaps in this instance. This is the
Detailing the names, I mean, we're talking about all of a human's experience in life that they can remember, including having written it down or anything like that. So it's every possible kind of fact. And the inference is every possible legal logical transformation, and the conclusion is your theory of a mechanical universe, which you've ignored aspects of A, certain facts about our existence and emotional reality that it does exist. You've ignored those in your argument. You're drawing B and ignoring those, and I'm saying, well, you can't ignore them and then go back and say because I've got this mechanical theory B, therefore the things I ignored don't exist, and that's what you're doing.
An example of a logical inference called a conditional, as discussed in prior videos, or implication. Okay.
Well, I still feel friendly towards you. I Skyped you recently. I still feel friendly towards you, but I'm doubting your intelligence.
Now this is me talking to Pyro, right, about this statement. It's a valid statement, but it's not sound. You're entitled to say I'm saying that. It's not sound because of what A and B is. A is, well, I'm unclear as to what A is. Yeah, is it the set of your one experience that derives a particular B? So is it a universal?
Yes, it is your set of particular experiences that you have derived your uh, m- mechanical model of gears for the universe from. Uh, you've made a mistake. I'm trying to help you out and explain to you you've made a mistake. Your model is a mistake. It has mistakes in it. That's not a big deal in that everybody's model has mistakes. None of them can be perfect. Some are better and worse, though, and yours is worse than mine, but not worse than everybody's. It's better than some people's, many people probably, just not as good as my theory that I've derived. So A is the set of all of the data that you got from all of your experiences so far. And B is the theory you have come up with. And let's say I had a similar theory such that we thought we had the same theory, they were compatible. Anytime we spoke about the two theories, the one I have and the one you have, we would be more and more convinced that you and I agree fully. They'd still be separate theories, and yours would be built from your experiences, and mine would be built from mine.
Um, or is it the set of all your experiences, which are some of your experiences?
Well, I think part of the problem is it has to be all your experiences in the end. You can't ignore any of your experiences and then say because of your model that those experiences aren't important. You made a decision that they weren't important when you ignored them in your reduction of the data, right? So the fact is, though, when you're making a physical world, you think of things like, wow, that argument I had with my cousin, and I felt this way. It doesn't really, it's not pertinent to physics, so I can ignore that and just look at things that are important to physics, and that's how I'll come up with a model of physics. You, but you can't ignore the fact that you ignored it, right? And in the long run, if you're trying to deny something like first person experiences, which I know is in every time you've taken data, this first person experience took place, was present, was detectable. Its presence could be deduced. It's a boundary condition. It's true by definition. It's always there. And you're going to tell me that you took data that proved it wasn't there, then I know you've made a serious, huge mistake.
Which derives a particular B, or several Bs, yeah? Or is it everybody's experiences? From that comes whatever B is. At this moment, a model, I think, right?
Okay,
And
regarding everybody's experiences, since we grant other people have experience, we can hypothetically consider those situations where it's everybody's experience counts, right? And so there's a set of ideas that's everybody's experiences. But we don't have a direct access to those other experiences the way we have access to our own, right? So those become separate arguments. My arguments based on my own experiences are primary in my epistemology. They're primary in your epistemology. Your experiences, your knowledge of what it's like to experience, provides an individual, or what I call a solipsistic epistemology, that you're stuck with. On the other hand, granting agency and believing that, as I do, is a real thing, we don't have to make the leap of saying it's been proven. We're just going to start reasoning as if it's true. And in that case, we can take the shared experiences of a group, right, and do a very similar thing to what I've said. The thing is, you can decompose that process of taking the shared experiences of the group back down into the individual, right? Because my understanding of other people's experiences comes from their relaying those experiences to me, which is me with my senses watching and having an experience of somebody telling me what they thought or what they did, relaying those experiences. I experience them telling me, right? And if I accept that as legitimate, I might put that experience up there as, equally valid to the one I have directly, right? But I can do the informational mapping of why have I taken into account your experiences, and my understanding of the world comes down to my experience of you relating that experience, right? So you can always relate everything back down to the film strip. And as far as I'm concerned, to have a valid statement, that always has to be the case. Your statement has to be relatable back down into the first person set of data that you have as an individual. You're going to make a statement, you have to admit that statement is coming from your own experience. That can include the experience of reading the notebooks of Albert Einstein. That's your experience of reading those notebooks, which we all tend to accept relate to Albert Einstein's experience, but not directly, right? Very prone to misinterpretation, but sometimes with experiment results and stuff, it's not prone to misinterpretation because it's a complete enough description of the experiment that you just do it yourself if it comes to that. And then through a process like that, we come to a group consensus of what our shared model of the universe is, and it all maps back to your individual film strip and what you experienced of what other people thought. So, for example, if you never had contact with any other people, you were a hermit, and you've been raised by hermits, then you wouldn't know about Einstein's theory of general relativity. It would not be in your ontology.
These supposed experiences, do they include animals?
Supposed.
So you're not so.
Supposed experiences. But I'm pretty sure you've already admitted that the experiences are happening in a mechanical universe, and so they exist. Whatever they really are, whatever the elusive nature, there's a phenomena, and that means something's going on in the material world to produce that phenomena.
As the logical truth table, if I was to say experiences generally, yeah, if I have an experience, the implication above, yeah, to write it and it be sound, if there's an experience, there'd have to be a model. Okay? Now,
I don't get that. If there was an experience, there'd have to be a model. No, I don't follow.
can you show that for every existent experience there's a model? No, you can't. Yeah? You can't show that animals are modeling in
I'm not sure what you're gonna be getting at here. I do believe animals have these experiences, and whether or not they're modeling, well, I think that's immaterial. I believe, of course, their brains model. The mammalian brain does model things. It's built in. But if it doesn't, or the definition of model comes into play, and it, they still have experiences. I'm not basing the idea that they have experiences on that they model. It's based on their behavior of acting like things that are having experiences, right? I have experiences. I act a certain way. Other humans act a certain way. I think they look like they have experiences. Dogs look like they're happy and sad. I think they're having an experience of being. I mean, it seems like some living things have that quality, and of course, I'm on record as saying I believe all living things have that quality, which you know.
The sense that you mean, we mean.
Well, at this point, Mr. Logic, it is incumbent upon you to demonstrate what you're talking about, that in order to have a film strip, you have to be something that models the film strip. And then the result of that, I predict, will be that, yeah, animals model. It is required to model. To be alive and have some sort of cognition is intimately related to having some sort of a machine, neurology, biological, chemical machine, whatever kind of machine that does modeling, that's one of the prerequisites for being alive, and having a stream of cognition. That is what we call the first person experience. I think that a mosquito flying along uh, sees the world zipping around them from their point of view. That's what I think.
So if experience includes animals,
Yes.
it's not sound because the premise isn't true. The proposition isn't true.
So what you just said, as far as I'm concerned, makes no sense. And normally I would give you the benefit of doubt and just think I didn't get the sense of it, but it's starting to look like no, probably it just doesn't make any sense. So the fact that I think animals have experiences makes the premise, which premise, A or B? Which part of the logical diagram you've drawn up there are you talking about right now? Because none of it, I don't think, right?
If it includes everybody's human experience, the intelligent people's experiences, well, not every human experience results in a model. So again, it's false, the premise. Okay, so maybe we just let's give you some latitude and say,
Oh wait, so you're saying what? So every person doesn't create this model B. So yeah, no, it's not about the group. It's about your individual experiences lead to your model B. To a certain degree, grouping is an illusion. It's something we apply. You have the first person experiences A, set of experiences A, and you conclude B. In your case, you're wrong. The B you've concluded is clearly wrong. I have concluded a B that is not complete. It doesn't describe the entire universe, but is more accurate than yours. So mine is B sub 2. And in Mendham is Z sub 15. And right? And we can approximate this idea of a shared consensus by taking all of those outputs, B and B sub 1 and Z sub 15, and we can put those in a big set and call that our collective model. And then we can look for similarities between those different individual models and create tertiary, still more abstract models explaining more than one of our models at a time, and call that also a collective understanding, or what we often call it is a school of philosophy, where a lot of people find particular statements all equally agreeable, such that they're willing to say, that's my school of philosophy.
all the scientific experiences of A is all the scientific experiences um, were in they're to a scientist, yeah, and will allow you rather than writing pages and pages of the specification, we'll hope we understand, and we'll grant that every time a scientist has an experience, he makes a model. Okay, that premise.
By the way, the reason I'm doing the interjectory thing now is that I've made all the points. You made a point about circularity. I answered it. You said be technical. I was technical. And now you're still going on like you don't know what's happened. So there's no reason for me to summarize a video like this, and because the notes would be, no, I still don't think I'm condescending, but I see how some people might think that. And no, I still don't think my model's circular, and I still do think that pretending you can start from the third person perspective is, ridiculous. Obviously, you don't and can't start from there, and that's both true logically and chronologically. Um, so interjectory, I can say, look, look at these tangents you're shooting off. You still, we're 25 minutes into your video, and you haven't answered the fact that I say my thing isn't circular because I say I'm allowed to start from the undeniable truth. My argument is, hey, there is an undeniable truth. It's that you're having experiences. It's not that you're thinking. It's not that I think, therefore I am. No, it's that you're having experiences and perceptions. That's an undeniable truth, and we're allowed to start from it. And in fact, there's nothing else to start from. That's not circular. Now, you could say we can't start from it or blah, blah, blah. And I pointed out, well, there's nowhere else to start from. And you've admitted we all have to start from it. And you say, yeah, but that start is just chronological. And I'm going, no, the data that comes from that is what you use for your logical implications. So it's not just chronological, it's also logical. And you're like, I don't want to be friends anymore.
I could live with. Yeah? But that's a far removed premise from what you put forward. That is a thought out promise that I might allow to be true with sufficient understanding about what this set is. Yeah? But it may be that the model is incorrect. Okay? The premise makes a model. A implies B. Doesn't mean the models are true. That would be a different premise.
Right, like your model, it's false.
Premise, if a scientist makes a model, then model is true, is false.
Right, like your model, that gears don't allow for the concept of will, that model is false. And in the fact that it denies that there even is a first person experience, it's clearly or prima facie false.
Because scientists make mistakes. Okay, so that's Pyro's side of it.
No. You were asking me whether I meant a be of one person or many people. That's not my side of it. That was a question about my side of it. And my answer is it's the one person case. That's what I mean by epistemologically, we have to be solipsistic in our most foundational philosophy. So I'm talking about your theory and not my understanding of your theory of a mechanical universe. Your theory of your understanding of your mechanical universe is based on a set of data that is or is a subset in your case of your first person experiences. Single person. It's all from a single person. You know why? Because I'm a single person. So all of my reasoning has to come down to a single person reasoning because I can't read a group mind or even know that there is such a thing, right? A shared consensus. Is it really shared? Well, it's a word we used to talk about individual consensus, individual ideas being similar enough to call it a consensus, and that's useful. But in our epistemology, we have to go with what we actually have access to. What we have access to is a stream of perceptions. That's our data. That's all we have. That's all everybody has. If there is other agents, that's all that other agent has. So we're talking about that single situation. If your experiences are valid, then you say this model must be true. I say I think your senses probably are valid, but you made a mistake during the T or the H or the E or the N.
Now, right, this video is like totally longer than planned, but
Well, especially since you were bitching about me making a 40-minute video.
I'm going to jump to the summary section now. Um,
See,
of the third video,
you don't know you have
for about
another
5 minutes.
right. So you don't know you have another 15 minutes to go. See, wait. I think I had a problem here. Hopefully this continued. This is again, you're doing this Gary thing.
I'm not doing no Gary thing.
Yes. Okay, what did I say?
What you said wasn't.
You are doing a Gary thing because I've made my defense about why it's not circular, and you've still not engaged my defense. My defense of it not being circular. My defense of this is A, this is A, and then B is our model of the world. So if this is my A, then this is my model. If this is your A, then this is your model. And that's not circular, right? That part where it has to go back up there, you haven't shown how I go back up there from down here. I haven't done that. Yeah, this is capable of generating images that I would then see, but I don't say that I don't say I know I'm having experiences because I know they're being generated. Nope. I just say I'm having experiences, and all of these frames of data look like there's an external world, and it obeys quantum mechanics and general relativity, and we probably need a new theory that could combine them. That's what I say, and there's no circularity. You have not shown how I'm going back up. I've shown how you are, because you start down here and then go back up. And you don't think that's circular because I started here and I went back up. But I pointed out that everybody started here and took this data and went down there. So you did that first, then you pretend that didn't happen, and you go back up here and make judgments about this. You cannot try to stamp out our first-person experiences of being willing creatures, of being the homunculus. You can't stamp out those experiences based on what you derived from that experience. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to say, look, I got this model. Sure, I got it from up here, but once I got it, then it's true. I know it's true, and I could go back here and say this is wrong. No, this continues to be the only thing that's 100% right, in the sense that we had all of those experiences. Now, we might have thought we saw a ghost, and it was really just a shadow and a fearful memory combining to make us think we saw a ghost. But the fact that we think we saw a ghost, that's real. That's the data. Seems obvious.
You'll not find no logical book that talks about axioms being self-proving. Yeah? You can say it's synonymous. It's synonymous to you, but if you're talking to a technical guy, talking about logic, talking about philosophic logic, talking about mathematical logic, and you use something self-proving or proofed, then he wants to see how it proves and what that work is, because the word proof has a technical meaning.
Okay, here, Hythloday, you're just totally wrong. When people try to justify axioms, for example, in the academy, philosophers, professional PhD philosophers, the argument that something is axiomatic is definitely the idea of self-proving. Now, Gödel created a big problem with the concept of self-proving when it comes to all of arithmetic, but the idea is still that we have these principles that, since they're self-proving, that's how they get derived. So, for example, Roger Penrose thinks that there is something akin to a Platonic world of ideals where these things are just as material and physical as anything else, and we can derive them from their reality. We see them because they have this reality, and that's yet another way to talk about how these things prove themselves. I'm an empiricist, which maybe you've never met, but I'm an empiricist, and I say that it all comes from the film strip. Even an imaginary creature like a unicorn really is made up from the film strip. We've seen ponies, we've seen horns, and we combine them and create something quote unquote new, but in reality it is a mashup of things that we have in the film strip, and in fact none of our ideas can possibly consist of anything that wasn't derived from the film strip that isn't just a mashup or what we call a data reduction.
um, which isn't synonymous in that field. Nobody said that was self-proven. Nope.
Well, you're mistaken. The idea that there's such a thing as you said you believed in a priori truths. A priori truth is taught at Berkeley Philosophy School in the 80s as synonymous with self-proving. So if there's a priori truths, it means there's truths that are just necessarily true, which means that A implies A is sufficient, which is synonymous with self-proving.
Nobody said they're self. You said they're self-evident.
Yeah, and that's what you'll read in the technical books on philosophy and logic, is that axioms are deemed to be usually self-evident. Yeah? Sometimes they're not even self-evident. In mathematics, they're just, oh, interesting, let's play with them. Right?
Well, no, in philosophy, that's the way it is. They're interesting. Let's play with them. Like when I took real analysis in mathematics, and they were saying, well, what you need to have in mathematics is you have to have the law of identity has to be true, and you have to have the law of induction has to be true, and then there was a third one, I forget what it was. And it's like, if you make a system that follows these rules, we're willing to consider it a kind of mathematics. We're just playing with them. We're talking about how patterns interrelate to each other, right? Applied mathematics being a separate thing. That's how it is in logic, too. And if somebody is particularly shy about saying that self-evident is the same as self-proving, then it's because they're admitting that they're not proved. Self-evident is like, I'm going to take it as true because nobody wants to disagree with me, right? It's like, it's totally a truth by consensus kind of bullshit thing.
In philosophic terms, an argument for truth and soundness, that your premises are true, very often you hear the term self-evident. But you don't hear self-proven. Show me a book. I got 20.
No, I don't care which phrase is more common, and I haven't denied or asserted anything about that. It's totally unimportant. But the only thing that I think is self-evident is the film strip. Nothing else is evident. Is very directly. This is what's evident. I'm having these images. I'm having these feelings. I hear these sounds. That's self-evident. That's what I mean by undeniable. You can pick on the word undeniable. You could say self-evident's not supposed to be about something like this. But it doesn't matter to me whether I'm speaking French or English or anything. I'm talking about the fact that this is happening for everybody. And anybody that says that it isn't, probably lying. But maybe they're zombies. Maybe some people this isn't happening. My dad said, I don't have an internal voice. No. Maybe he's not. I don't know. Maybe not everybody has that spark of the internal first person. Maybe some people are robots and zombies. I'm not going to treat them that way because I wouldn't want to accidentally treat a true individual first person like a zombie, and I don't really even want to treat zombies if they're nice people like they don't deserve the same rights as a person with the first person experience. And frankly, I think that's ridiculous. I think you can't behave like a human and be a zombie. Zombies behave differently.
PDF books. I've got 100 books on PDF books and the likes on logic and abstract mathematical logic set theory, and none of them will say, oh, the axioms are self-proving.
Maybe they're conscientious about the fact that they're not proven at all. They don't want to call them proven, but they still want to take them as true, which generally taking something as true is supposed to be reserved for the proven. Now, that I had this experience here in these hills, that's the raw data. It doesn't even bear proof.
But the word self-proving is too different. Have you ever heard the word self-proving?
No, I've not. No, I've not. Not in no technical. I'm talking technical. No, I've not.
Well, we're in different countries, and what do you mean, no, not in technical? You're defending your own use of metaphor and loose speak, right? Um, I think in this context, you should accept self-proving as equivalent for self-evident. And also, if you think I'm not speaking technically by saying that, you should still recognize that I'm saying the same thing, that I'm not making a distinction between self-proving and self-evident. Those are the same thing. So even if I'm wrong and they're two different things, you can assume I'm meaning the same thing. I'm meaning that they're the same thing. That's the way I'm using the word. And then you could figure out with your brain what I'm saying, and then you would know what I'm saying, and you wouldn't be so confused about what I'm saying.
Sorry.
It's a synonym of.
No,
You say
don't.
it's synonym. Go Google it.
Yes, I'm saying it's a synonym. I don't have to Google it. I could be wrong. But the way I've been talking to you, I was using it as a synonym because self-proving and self-evident, self-evidence, evidence that the self is true. I am self-evidence. My self-existing proves the evidence for a conclusion of myself. Self-evident. I can self-evidence myself. I am the A and I'm the B. Self-evident. That's a proof. Self-proof. Now, there is nothing self-evident except for the fact that we're experiencing. Now, that wouldn't be much to go on, except for the experience is rich. It has many different channels of different kinds of information. It has colors. It has sounds. It has textures. It has tastes. It has emotions and feelings of hunger, and comfort and distress, and curiosity, and eureka, and comprehension. It's very rich, the kinds of data in here. So the fact that we're experiencing turns out to have a lot of fucking detail. And we're not talking, you and me, about anything that doesn't relate to this, to these details. If there's an energy form of light we can't see, like ultraviolet light, oh, but we have a camera for it. But if there's one we have no camera for, we're not talking about it. For sure, you and me are not talking about any kind of data that didn't first appear in here. And you haven't answered that. You haven't answered that this is the data set. This is the complete data set. And your refined data set is a subset of that. It seems pretty obvious and plenty mathematical and logical, but you're not answering that a half an hour in. To a video that started complaining that my video was 40 minutes. Well, this one's 40 minutes too so far.
Go Google it and show me synonym. You say it's synonym.
Self-evident.
You say I'm.
None of my argument relies on it being a synonym. Self-evident then. Because self-evident's the same kind of bullshit. I'm evidence for myself as calling it self-proving. So self-evident, fine. Self-evidence, it's bullshit. I don't have to call it the same as self-proving in order to say that. And it's proven what other people say, totally immaterial to what I'm saying. Doesn't matter that other people, yeah, and I do believe they avoid it because they want to soften it. They want to soften the bullshit of, we start our arguments on things that, yeah, we can't justify. You know why? Because we don't have to. Why? Because they're evidence for themselves. But that's not the same as proving yourself. Totally different.
Being pedantic. No, I told you at the outset I was going to be.
You're not being pedantic. You're being wrong.
About a technical criticism, and only the one.
It's not very technical.
They just obviously must be true.
No, I've just told you. I don't say that obviously must be true. I say they're self-evident. Yeah, okay.
So that's funny. They're not obviously true. I just say self-evident. So you're just confirming what I've said, which is that people are very careful. This is a weakness of your bullshit third-person world starting view. I'm only objective, right? So you're very careful not to use any of the words that make you look bad. So you're going with self-evident. Well, bad news. Self-evident also makes you look bad because it's saying that it proves itself. I am evidence for myself. That's self-proof. It's like, and you're going to deny this other wording that I put on it. Well, no, I don't say it's obviously true. I say it's self-evident. Yeah, you say it's self-evident, and it's the same thing as saying it's obviously true. Oh, for fuck's sake. So annoying.
I can do that. When I misspeak, I know I've misspoke. Yeah? What I mean is, I don't prove the truth. Yeah? And those people, and I've made this point before, those people who want to say it's not self-evident, that's fine. Okay, it's not so self-evident. I thought it was. If I say it's self-evident, and I meet somebody who says it's not self-evident, then I go, oh, right, you're right, it's not self-evident.
No, you don't do that. Your law of mechanical gears, that's not self-evident. And it doesn't follow from self-evident things. And I said it, and you still disagree with me. So what point are you even trying to make that, well, I admit I'm wrong when I'm wrong, and since I'm not admitting I'm wrong, I must not be wrong. That's not how that works, dude.
I won't try to get anybody to agree to. If somebody says an axiom is not self-evident, then that's the end of it. It's not self-evident. But if we want to talk about the argument,
See, you don't understand yourself. Your mechanical universe where your idea that a mechanical universe must go from one singular state to one singular transition to one singular state, you say that's true, which means that I'm supposed to call it self-evident. And I'm saying all along now, from the very start, that's not self-evident, it's not evident, and it's not even probably true.
as being valid and having soundness, and the truth of the argument as dependent upon the axioms as taken as self-evident, then that's a different world. And that's the world I'm living in when I'm making a technical criticism.
Right. Which is obviously just like people that think God must be true or anything must be true with no evidence.
No.
Yeah, you feel it. I get it, dude.
Yeah.
So here's the thing before he replies to that. So you said earlier, Hythloday, that you watch the video ahead of time and carefully pick out the clips. And that somehow makes you a better person, a better argumenter than those of us that are going through all of your video. I'm going through all of your video here. And even if I don't finish, I didn't ignore any of the parts so far that I went through. So you're picking a particular clip and you're saying that that must be more honest. No, you're picking a clip you want to pick on. It's not honest. It's not more careful. And your notes, all your notes don't help. You're zeroing in on your choice of what to reflect of my words, right? I'm providing the whole context. Okay, so what did you have to say about that? Should I rewind? No, let's not.
We've not even discussed axioms. In fact, the things which I would call axioms and that we've agreed on, we've not formally agreed axioms, okay? And to the extent we have informally, there's been a lot of agreement that my conceptions of self-evident are your conceptions of self-evident. And logic works with the logic. You're the one claiming that there's a logical inference in this process, this direction of travel, and there's no logic in it. There's not a bit of logic in it.
Well, I'm curious with my scientific example.
Right. There's logic here. That is, it's a valid premise. Yeah? And when you talk about if A then B, which is not what I've been talking about, the criticism was about your 3 videos. At one time, you're talking about the direction of travel, blah, blah,
Okay,
blah,
so
blah.
I had
You
all this stuff to say.
and say, something I want to stand behind is if A, then B. I mean, later on you say, oh, I have made an argument, I've gone through my axioms and shown my conclusion, right? No, one statement, one proposition. You're working.
The one statement is all of our data comes from here. And that data implies another statement. Our models, my model, your model, a particular person's model from a particular film strip. That happens. Where's the circular part? You admit that you got your model from your information, and I assert that, and you say at that point that somehow that's circular because this is just historical. but it's clearly where we get all the inputs to our logical arguments we make to get to our conclusions that we believe in.
Thinking logically to a degree when you say if A then B. Right? But I've not criticised where you're talking about if A then B. But because in a video you describe if A then B, you then through the entire video continue as if I criticised if A then B. Right? And so I clarified and said, no, I'm talking technically. That you spoke non-technically, and that you accused me of being, or various people of being circular, and that you can't do that, and I told you exactly when you can do it, and that you've not lived up to the expectations.
Right, but I don't think you set the expectations. Maybe that's the part you're getting confused on.
Doesn't somebody have to look at the results of the experiment to do and make a model?
Yes, they do.
Okay, well, looking at results means getting frames of the film strip. So those results are where the data comes from to make the logical argument of your conclusion.
Well, not always.
Not always.
That's why if A then B is false, yeah, because they don't have to look at you. They can sit here and they can dream up a model, an abstract model, just out of their imagination. Yeah? They don't have to go look at experiments. Right?
But see, what I'm saying is in that case, they're out of their imagination. Their Lego set is previous information from here. So I believe even if they make it up out of whole cloth, it isn't whole cloth. It's out of things they know, like the unicorn, made up out of whole cloth. It doesn't exist except for it's a lot like a pony with a horn, and we've seen horns and we've seen ponies, so kind of a mashup.
This is what I was talking about. And if we accept that he's a scientist and he's got the purpose of making a model, to the which in that sense, where's the icon?
And isn't that logical inference from the data?
Languages that have been used technically.
The idea that they're self-proving. They don't.
Nobody said that was self-proving. So if it's on the jar and just link them in this
See,
process.
wait. I think I had a problem here. Hopefully this continued. This is again, you're doing the scary thing. Okay, what did I say?
Nobody said that was self-proving.
Nobody said they're self-proving. You said they're self-evident. But the word self-proving is too different. Have you ever heard the word self-proving? It's a synonym of self-evident. They just obviously must be true, right? Which is obviously just like people that think God must be true or anything must be true with no evidence. Yeah, you feel it. I get it, dude.
Yeah, and logic works with logic. You're the one claiming that the logical inference in this process is directly established.
You know what? I just realized that I'm checking you on Skype because I just realized what we're talking about is less important to me than that you said you don't think you're my friend anymore. Because I usually have a rule where people I meet online, I don't consider them friends per se. I'm friendly. I like them. I think they're great, even, or I could be a fan. Like musicians I haven't met, but I don't consider them a personal friend. But you're way over there in the UK, and we've talked about things that are separate from what we've talked about as part of the public dialogue. And not for people that don't know, I'm not alluding to any big stuff. I'm just saying shit that doesn't come up for the dialogue. How's your weather? What's going on? Oh, you got a dog, and friendly stuff. And so I'd realized, you know what, I don't want to answer this anymore because I looked on Skype to see if you were on, and I'm actually more concerned about that other issue. So I'm going to try to contact you in person about this philosophical disagreement we have because I don't understand a rational reason for you to say that means I'm not friendly to you. My only requirement that I put on other people or myself in this dialogue primarily It only is too strong. Let's say primarily is that the person's honestly saying what they think. I'm not making a game show of, hey, I know here's the weak spot of your argument, so I just try to tear it down. No, I strengthen your argument. I agree when I agree, and everything else. I might be infuriating, but it's honestly an infuriation from how the chemistry of your idea relates to the chemistry of my idea. It's my actual idea that I believe. I'm not faking or trying to make a problem where there isn't one or trying to ignore a problem where there is, because that's beside the point. This exercise is where we don't do that in social life and stuff. There's all kinds of diplomacy and reasons to be diplomatic, and where it's really the right thing, and it's not fake to hold your tongue. Here, we're supposed to say what we think of each other's ideas, and it just occurred to me that I don't get why this disagreement is so objectionable to you, and I would rather find out about that. It seems silly to me. But even if I never find out about that, um, I've lost interest in this particular thing.